God at the moment, he's kind of training me in kind of chord frequencies, that whether that be like people recognising if they're like kind of more sort of alternative in nature, or kind of demonically led, and also like chords of like kind of like atmospheres. He's kind of like playing a lot of like the sort of past tense in my life, like happier moments, and he's the sun shining down, and he's like kind of looking on me with favour because I'm really suffering at the moment, and it's just like happy sort of memories from my childhood, like involves sparkle and like blue skies, like what it was today. Like stuff from where my parents were, like when we were on holiday, like that sea breeze and blue skies and stuff like that, and like, just general happy moments. It might even be with my dolls, and like he was kind of showing me that is actually a constructed chord of frequencies, like from what I've read, like gamma rays can like be an extension of frequencies what we see in our everyday life, through our eyes and ears. That's all part of like frequencies. Like everything that you own emits like a frequency of its own, including yourself, so all that stuff, the stuff around you, combines into a chord. And that's like, like when you start feeling very sort of retro happy, like where you see like a toy when you're a child, and it kind of hits a spot where it just takes you back, doesn't it? And like he was going on about, you'll know in your nature when things will start changing, as I've said on a previous video, like when these evil people are removed, you're gonna know. Well, I mean, like with the blue skies at the moment, you can tell something's happening because they were planning more or less to block out the sun in the UK, but it's gone the opposite way. And I know that a lot of people in V2K are contributing to try and getting this pushed back. As I say, we've got some evil people who like terrorists that have took over V2K, and like they're manipulating people and hurting them and stuff like that. They've took a lot of people hostage to do their bidding, like perping towards other people, and putting them into demonic practices and things like that, and they've sold a false yarn. He was saying, because like we've been in a kind of general consensus of secularism, we've been mating with these bloodlines, because like everything's been thrown caution to the wind, and they've managed to kind of get in through, the flap sideways, like to kind of unfortunate words, like that they've been breeding with us. If we'd have been in a more God census way, they would have been obvious, like to sort out the wheat from the chaff, like because like a lot of women, and well, I say especially women like myself, have ended up with guys that just don't really care, like that's the best it gets, like they're very narcissistic in nature. And this is like the these inbreeding kind of bloodlines that are not right at all, like that can walk away, and like not care. If we'd have had the God consensus, they would have been took through tests, like before you got married and things like that. And we're at the stage now where it's gone a very dark population, because as I say, it goes back to this Cain seed. They're not capable of having proper relationships. Like I've got like an arrow there. They're not capable of having relationships. They're not capable of committing. And they've got kind of because of like the general consensus of like television promoting, like crazy sex practices, and like not standing up for your responsibilities and treating sex like it's a recreational product. Like this is where we are. They've kind of slithered amongst the many, and like God was going on about the other day that, he comes, like to show the goats from the sheep, you know, like there's a lot of sheep that have gone, in other words sheep, you know, that would be ordinarily normal, you know, but they've been sort of taught this consensus of all this balmy sexuality that's been promoted, and they've gone along with the consensus of it. So, you know, God is going to show them up for what they really are. And as I say, I've been taught to recognise frequencies from people, and also frequencies in the atmosphere. I can't think of anything else he said. No. Anyway, I'll put it up if he comes up. He's like very fluid, fluid with the prophecies lately, you know, especially regarding the bloodline. And what I mean by bloodline, in other words, you know, like they're probably inbred, they're narcissistic in nature. They are, you know, the Cain syndrome. You know, like you can tell if it's in your bloodline, you know, like you probably lean more towards witchcraft. You like bloodletting, you know, like all those, you know, everything that's anti-God, basically, anything that's considered normal and responsible. So you know that in your bloodline somewhere there must have been like mess ups. I mean, like I was saying, like on a previous video, with my grandfather on my mum's side, you know, like he was a bit kinky and strange, and I think he messed around with some of my mum's sisters and stuff. She come from a family of 8 and brothers, and I think there was like some really wrongdoing, but I think it was more towards his family. As I say, my family's clear, you know, my mum and dad were straight, and you know there was no interference, and so am I. So, you know, like they can like stop if they're reverent for God and they start recognising it in themselves. But I mean, I think you know, the closer the bloodline is to like a long line of it, I think the more likely that you'll probably stay that way. And as I say, God says, you know, like people would have recognised it if they'd have come from a more God prominent background. So we've got to get back to that. Okay, thank you.